Continuing on with our bioremediation technologies, so we have now bioleaching. Bioleaching also in the industry it's known as biomining actually. You have your in bioleaching, it is the extraction of metals by metabolic activity of the bacteria. So it's the direct bioleaching or through the metabolic compounds produced by the bacteria for the indirect bioleaching. So basically you are using microorganisms to mine metals from low-grade ores. In here, the application here is on ores that are very impure or have very low concentrations of your desired metals. So it's very difficult to actually process them chemically. So we apply microorganisms to get the metals there. So it's considered a bioremediation in such a way that because high ores or dissolved with a very high concentration of metals can be toxic to us. And especially one of the issues then with one of the pollutants are actually the high concentration of the metal cations that are quite toxic to us. So some microorganisms that are used in bioleaching are persistently exposed to acid leaching solutions containing elevated metal concentrations which are toxic to most life. So your microorganisms here must have high resistance to acid. So some examples of the microorganisms used in bioleaching have Leptospirillum ferrooxidans and Thiobacillus thiooxidans. So for the case of example here in our image, you have your Thiobacillus ferrooxidans that are used to actually extract copper from low-grade ores. So the other one is land farming. So when we have it's a different one from the farming that we know of. In land farming, it's a bioremediation treatment process that is performed in the upper soil zone or biotreatment of cells. So you have the contaminated soil and then you actually till it for aeration. So it's like bioventing, but instead of the contaminated area being underground, it's basically above ground. So you till the soil to aerate it and then allow the microorganisms to degrade the contaminants in the soil. So contaminated soil sediments or sludges are incorporated into the soil surface and periodically turned over or tilled to aerate your mixture. Now the downside here in land farming, that's why it's one of the lesser known bioremediation strategies, is that it requires a lot of land. So because of course the process of the remediation is aerobic, because you are tilling the soil, you are aerating the soil. The process is aerobic, so there's only a certain depth which it is applicable. So basically you are limited to the size of the plant. So if you have a lot of contaminants that need to be processed, you need to have a lot of land, which in today's issues or today's societal and environmental concern, we are actually in short supply. So the other one is a bioreactor, I believe which are more familiar with you. So here, usually it's an ex situ process. You have the soil, excavate the contaminated soil, and then put it inside the bioreactor. The one good thing about this one compared to the other bioremediation strategies is that you have more control, temperature, pH, even the stimulating nutrients that you need to use to actually process the contaminants in the soil. You have more control. So that's basically bioreactor. So you will be putting your contaminated material, your waste material inside your controlled area, which is inside your bioreactor. It's usually used in wastewater treatment facilities actually. And then composting, I believe you are familiar with this one. So composting, you are basically, it refers to the use of biological system of microorganisms in mature, cured compost to sequester or break down contaminants in water and soil. So actually, you can do homemade composting from the kitchen refuse, kitchen waste. So you have the thing here is you need to have a cured compost starter. It contains the microorganisms that you need to actually process your compost. And then some people also add earthworms. Earthworms are actually very efficient organisms to process waste. So the contaminants are digested, metabolized, and transformed into humus and inert byproducts such as carbon dioxide, water, and salt. And of course, the resulting product is a very rich soil for planting. So it is proven effective in degrading and or altering many types of contaminants such as chlorinated and non-chlorinated hydrocarbons, wood-preserving chemicals, solvents, heavy metals, pesticides, petroleum products, and even explosives. Okay, so the last two here are very similar. So we have the bioaugmentation and its sister, biostimulation. So let's look at bioaugmentation first. So in bioaugmentation, it's the addition of the pre-grown microbial cultures to enhance microbial populations at a site to improve contaminant cleanup and reduce cleanup time and cost. So it's a strategy. It is also a strategy usually applied to improve the start of a bioreactor. So you're basically adding microorganisms to your system to actually, because these microorganisms are the one that process the pollutants. It is applied to improve the startup of a bioreactor, to accelerate process efficiency, to protect the existing microbial community against adverse effects, or to compensate for organic or hydraulic overloading. So when we say augmentation, you introduce exogenous microorganisms that are not native to that particular area. So in biostimulation, you have, instead of adding microorganisms like the bioaugmentation, you're adding nutrients to stimulate the already indigenous microflora, the microorganisms already present in the soil. So here, one of the main differences is that you are using indigenous microflora in biostimulation. In bioaugmentation, you have exogenous microflora. So biostimulation and bioaugmentation can be done simultaneously to enhance bioremediation efficiency. So most of the time, you have both. You add nutrients and additional microorganisms to the system, or to your site, to your contaminated soil or contaminated area, for them to actually work together. So here is a diagrammatical difference of biostimulation and bioaugmentation. So biostimulation, you just add nutrients and even water. Bioaugmentation, you add helpers, exogenous microorganisms, to actually degrade your contaminants. So that's it for Bioremediation Technologies. Thank you for listening.